My writing partner and friend died out of the blue, Doug Riggle. And it was an absolute shock to me. And it came out of the blue. And I thought, if I'm going to record my first video without him, what am I going to do and what am I going to talk about? And the first thing that popped in my mind was exactly this. What do you do when you get hit by unexpected events that come in your life? Hey, thanks for joining us. If this is your first time here, welcome. This is I'd Rather Be a Buffalo. My name is Kevin. I'm a writer and director, and I deal with a whole bunch of issues. I've been sober from alcohol for nearly 10 years, thanks be to God. And welcome to the show. I'd Rather Be a Buffalo is a show that is designed to help you get through the storms of life with Christ's help, deepen your relationship with God, and listen to what God's calling is for your life. So glad to be here. Yeah, this is my first solo show that I'm recording after Doug passed away in October, and it really made me think, like, what the heck, what the heck am I going to talk about? And it made me think, especially with the brand that Doug and I have developed here with this. It's about trying to help you get through those storms of life, and we get hit by unexpected blows that happen all the time. And what do you do? And how do you respond? Um, I've had it happen so many times in my life, not just recently with Doug's death, but I'm sure that you have also experienced this as well. When something comes out of the blue and you think that everything's been going great, and then all of a sudden you get blindsided. And there are different ways that you can respond to it in order to get through it. I thought, you know what, let me unpack some of this with you, and hopefully it may help you if you're finding yourself in a very similar circumstance, or if you're not in that circumstances, what are the things that you can be doing now to help prepare you for this? Because guess what? You're going to get blindsided by something in your life. There's no doubt. We don't get off out of this life scot-free without any issues happening. Um, there is one way to look at it, to kind of go, well, you're going in and out of crisis all the time. Or if we're looking towards heaven, it's the idea that we're going in and out of crisis, but if we're doing it as we're on our way towards the kingdom, that's a good place to be. So, what do you do? What do you do? And believe me, I've experienced this a number of times in my life. And there's actually a number of times in my life that I was in different stages of where I was with my relationship with Christ that sort of affected how I dealt with this. Maybe you're in one of these places. I had three major things that kind of popped in my mind. Um, One of them was when I got diagnosed with testicular cancer when I was 25. Um, you know, Going along, Kate and I had our first child together, Maddie, and had already been raising our other son, Luke, as well, and just going along. And then all of a sudden at 25, I got diagnosed with testicular cancer out of the blue, and having to go in for operation radiation therapy. And really having that blindsided moment where, number one, it really impacted us financially because just didn't have the proper insurance to be able to navigate that. So it really turned our financial situation upside down. And I also wasn't in a great place with my relationship with God. I had been, sort of going to mass for a number of years, just kind of going through the motions with it, but really had not been exploring my relationship with God. And when I went through that crisis, really ended up leading me to a dark place. Fortunately, because of that dark place I went through, I was able to kind of start learning about my relationship with God and diving deep in. But man, I didn't handle it well. It just felt like, man, I just got blindsided, and it ended up leading me to a deeper, darker place. And that's sort of one way to respond when you get hit by something that comes out of the blue. You can all of a sudden feel like you're in a panic, like, oh my gosh, if this is going to happen, then there's so many things that are in this life that I can't control. And what can I do? And it can be very easy to start spinning out into anxiety, despair, discouragement. Um, and I will have to tell you, in this situation, if you find yourself in a situation that's very similar to this, um, talk, talk, talk to somebody, a friend, somebody that's around you, to just try to start expressing some of the feelings that you're dealing with. That's what I started doing at that time. Uh, my wife, Kate, God bless her, she was helping me navigate this stuff as I was going through the illness and recovery and healing process. And as I was coming out of the healing process, I wasn't opening up my mouth. And finally was at a point where I was really in such a dark place. I finally kind of pulled the band-aid off the wound and just said, hey, I'm going through something and I need help. And fortunately, we were able to start talking through that. Um, but it took a while. And I was able to open up about that to other friends of mine to be able to communicate what was going on. But it started by talking. Satan wants to isolate you. He wants to isolate you. He wants you to feel as if nobody can understand what it is that you're going through or how you're going to be able to get out of this situation. Don't let yourself get separated, right? It's exactly what happens in the wild. It's why Jesus uses that analogy of the good shepherd going after sheep that go off. Don't get separated out. Don't get separated out by Satan so that he can attack you and cause you to just go into despair, death, any of that stuff. Other circumstances that happened in my life, we got hit by things like, for example, my youngest son, Duncan, when he got diagnosed with autism out of the blue, a little bit over 3, had been born and raised, just seemed like normal progression. And then, things started kind of going south for him. Things started going south. Um, like all of his talking started going away. And, we finally ended up having to get him into see neurologists and specialists who ended up telling us at that time, hey, your son has autism. And in that moment, it just felt like everything that we had planned for Duncan or what we hoped for Duncan's life in that moment, it felt like it was going away. And I remember having this moment of, I think that I've shared it before on this podcast in the past, but having this moment where I was lying down with Duncan in the bed the night that we'd received the preliminary diagnosis and weeping and sobbing with him, and yet having this moment where I felt as if God was saying, it's okay, you get to feel this, but now we got to work through this. We got to work through this on the other side, and we got to try and help him have the best life that he possibly can. So let's get to work. So sometimes when you get hit by something, prayer is huge. Prayer is huge, bringing this stuff to God and asking him for help, but then also figuring in the moment, all right, what's the next thing that I can do? What's the next best thing that I can do? And also start trying to take some kind of movement forward, right? Some of the things I wanted that I really want to be able to express, particularly in this episode, is when you get hit by something, whether it's a medical issue, a loss of a friend or a family member, a financial crisis that hits you, how are you going to respond to it? How are you going to respond to it? Not react to it. It's very easy. Some of the reaction stuff that can happen can include things like completely shutting down, trying to completely numb yourself, which I had done in the past, dealing with some pressures. Part of the issues that I dealt with over the years, thank God, why I ended up getting my sobriety. Part of the way that I used to reactively uh, deal with these issues that came my way was like, this is too much. I just want to numb myself. Or, hey, I want to eat bad food, or I just want to have some booze to take the edge off or whatever. It's really not going to help the situation, right? It's almost a reactive way of dealing with the situation or shutting down. It doesn't end up solving it. I would recommend, if possible, how can I, as neutrally as possible, accept this information that's here? If I'm dealing with some grief and some anger that's dealing with it, okay, to recognize that. If you're dealing with grief of a lost one, to definitely be seeing a therapist or talking about it or getting to a grief share group to be able to express some of the emotions that you're going through with the stages of grief. But to also take that moment to go, all right, this is a moment, this is a season that I'm in. How do I respond to this? And what's the next best step that I can take forward? In some of those cases, it may mean I think that I need to make sure that I'm trying to get good sleep, that if possible, to try and get exercise, to also recognize that if you're having outbursts or reactions or things like that that are happening, to recognize, hey, I'm kind of going through a crisis. And yes, I'm I'm granted this, right? I'm allowed to have outbursts or reactive moments, but to recognize it for what it is and to make sure that those reactions aren't spinning out and becoming the norm, right? To just go, hold on, this is a moment. I need to get back to my as neutral place as possible and what's the next best thing that I can do for myself or others moving forward. Um, and I think about other things that have happened in my life, right? We had a situation. I live in Los Angeles, and I'll just be frank. There have been times that have happened, particularly over the last several years, where uh, crime in our city has not been great. It really hasn't. I'm hoping that there's a change that happens with certain things in our system around here in Los Angeles and city government. But within the space of 5 years, I owned two Toyota Priuses that I drove, my wife drove. In the space of 2 years, or excuse me, in the space of 5 years, on both of those cars, we had three catalytic converters stolen. Usually, when the catalytic converters happen, especially here in Los Angeles, Toyota Priuses are very susceptible to it, where thieves can come in less than 5 minutes. They come in with a metal saw and they go zip, zip like that underneath the car. They grab the entire catalytic converter thing that's underneath the car. They take it. They're stealing it basically for platinum, and they're putting it on a black market, and they're getting like maybe $200 for the platinum that's inside of it. The unfortunate thing that happens is because they've cut the thing off of the pipe that's on the undercarriage of it, you can't just replace that part. You have to replace this entire um, part that's underneath the car, and it's about a $2,500 replacement. In the space of 5 years, on those two cars that we owned, I had the catalytic converter stolen 3 times. And in addition to that, one of those Priuses, after having all of those catalytic converters stolen, one of those Priuses ended up getting completely stolen altogether. I cannot tell you the anger and the rage that I felt in that moment, especially like after the third catalytic converter and then after having the other thing stolen and having this moment of just having this complete rage that wanted to come over me. And definitely things I was just like going, I don't know what I would have done in the moment if I had caught, those thieves red-handed. Now, unfortunately, there was literally a soap opera actor who, within the last year of the time that I'm recording this, ended up coming across a couple of thieves and ended up getting shot and killed. So it wouldn't have been good. My point is, with this thing, when you have such a major thing that comes your way out of the blue, and it is unfair to just take this moment of going, I'm so furious or whatever. But the changes that have happened because of program, talking, writing, fellowship, all of this stuff that I've been doing over the last several years, one of the things I was able to do in that moment was to go, Lord, as much as I don't want to, I'm praying for those thieves. I'm praying for those thieves for a conversion and a conviction that happens in their hearts so that they change their ways from what they're doing, right? Um, that's not an easy place to get to. I've only gotten to that place because of the work that I've done over the last several years to get here. And then I think about Doug's passing that just happened, over the last month. Even though he was dealing with stage 4 cancer, when he passed away, it was sudden. I literally had shared a video message with him the morning before he died. We were supposed to record an episode 2 days later, and then got the news that he was gone. And it was absolute shock. And at the moment when I'd received the news from him, I was in a situation where I was caring for another family member who was going through some stuff. And in that moment, I had to go, I need to take care of my family member that's dealing with some issues right now and to try and navigate this. And Lord, help me get through this. And obviously, talking with my wife as I was going through this, and praying through it and grieving as well and allowing space to be able to grieve. I'm so grateful for my relationship, with my wife, and also the fellowship and the friendship that I have with my other brothers in Christ. I was able to reach out and to talk with them about these feelings I was dealing with as well. I think that the biggest things I want to tell you in this are start getting in communication with other people and developing these relationships and talking about things that you're navigating, right? So that you're not just doing it by yourself. God made us so that we are in community with other people, right? This is how he built this world. And part of this is those moments where, yes, we can go to him in individual prayer, but part of this is also about reaching out and talking. Do that for yourself. If you haven't gone through a crisis like this or whatever, um, I just recommend the practice of talking about maybe some smaller challenges or other things that you might be going through in your life. Hey, they might feel like tremendous challenges that you're going through, but I would get in the habit of sharing maybe challenges that you're going through or how you're doing it and getting into a regular prayer life, reading scripture, attending church and mass, being around other believers. Um, because you need to be around that community when hardship hits, because it will, and that you can realize that you can lean into others that will help support you through those times. One of the ways that I've gone through this as well is just by learning to write, like writing, getting my thoughts and my feelings and being able to learn to express it so I can go back over my stuff and then review that as well to see what's going on. If you've never done that before, you can head over to I'dRatherBeABuffalo.com. We have an I'd Rather Be a Buffalo 1 month journal that you could practice on. It's a free download that you can get. We've got some other material that's going to be ready for you with year-long journal stuff as well to help you out. That is forthcoming. We're about to put out the year-long version of it, and then we got blindsided by literally Doug's passing as well. So listen, regardless, here's the thing. I hope that some of this helped you today with recognizing it's going to come. It's going to come. But what are the things I can do to start helping me and preparing me for when I have to go through those hardships? Hey, if you like this video, could you please do me a favor? Hit like and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can find out when the next episode is coming up. We've got some stuff that's coming up. We'll have some interviews with some people that are coming on the show to talk about how they're able to navigate and get through their hardships as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.